fund headquartered here in Dakar. We invest in seed stage impact tech startups across the continent.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Ife Dorosimi Eti. I'm the founder of AfricArena. AfricArena is a financial technology platform that provides women with high-yield savings accounts and women-centric products, discounts on women-centric products and services. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julien Gut. I'm a pre-seed seed investor. I invest in the entire continent with a focus on West and North Africa, Nigeria and Egypt included. And it's never too early to start a conversation.
Hi, Tahir. I'm a partner at Savant. We are a hardware and deep tech VC, historically focusing on pre-seed and going all the way to Series A. We also have an incubator and an acceleration program to help companies get ready for investment.
All right, Tahir and I were just in Cairo, so it's great to see you here today in Dakar as well. Where I want to start the conversation is to pick up with the founder voice first, right, Ife? That's at the heart of this discussion. And what I really want to dive in on is to talk first about the challenges as we think about the role of women in startup ecosystems across the continent. I'd love to have you describe a bit from your personal perspective what you see as some of the main challenges that women currently face when they're starting new ventures.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that question, and it's very, very important that we actually address some of these challenges. I would say that one of the top challenges is actually funding for women. So right now, globally, there are only about 892 women who have actually raised over $1 million, and you would see thousands and millions of men if you want to do a comparison. So that just shows you that we don't have enough people who are actually looking at women to give women money. So that also trickles down to say that people actually don't believe in what these women are actually building. So the first thing I would say, first challenge is obviously funding. And I'm excited to see that today there are more gender lens focused funds, because if we're not intentional about creating those funds, those accelerator programs, that's another challenge where the women are not really mentored for the VC space, because the VC space, there are different kinds of businesses that you can do, but if you want a backable or VC backable business, you have to build your business in a certain way. You have to grow fast, you have to understand certain terminologies, you have to know, like before I started my business, I personally started as a community and I wasn't necessarily thinking about growing it, the VC way, right? And it was very difficult for me to start understanding how to navigate that space. But thank God for a program like Startup Bootcamp who came along the way and showed us that there are things like AWS credits, for example, which we got as well. Thank God, thank you. And if you don't have that support, if you don't have that network, if you don't have that ecosystem that you can actually rely on, you would just be pouring water in a basket. So as women, you need to have that community. You need to have people you can rely on, that you can ask questions, because these things, they're not readily available if you don't have the right people to ask these questions to. So those are some of the challenges that women face, not having the right, support network when you're starting out your business, not being able to get access to investors, not being able to have access to those communities, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ife. It's interesting, so my team surveyed founders all over the world, and two of the things that you talked about made it to the top 5 of that list, fundraising and community. I think oftentimes fundraising, of course, comes up in every conversation you'd have like this, no matter where it is. Fundraising is so critical. But community, I think, is often an aspect that's overlooked. You don't necessarily always hear founders call that out. But I think as a former founder, I know how important it is, especially to be in conversation with other founders, to learn from each other. There's, of course, the role of advisors and your board, but there's also a lot that you can learn through peer mentorship. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm going to come to the rest of the panel, the investors in the group. We'll of course talk a little bit more about fundraising, but just also starting with that broad question of what are some of the challenges that you see, and we'll turn to the opportunities in a second because we all want to hear about solutions, right? But just to dive in a little bit more on challenges, coming to you first, Julie, and then going through the rest of the panel, can you talk a bit about some of the challenges that you see both for women who sit in founder seats, but also for women who sit in seats as GPs and who are within the venture capital space as well?
Yes, sure, thank you. So actually, And as you say, we always come back to fundraising. And as a first-time female fund manager, the biggest challenge was fundraising. Of course, everybody is able to fundraise, but I think the challenge is we should have more limited partners coming from the continent, because most of our investors are either from Europe, the US, and I think that we have to try and shift a bit the mindset in terms of investing, particularly here in Francophone Africa, where most of the investment goes towards something maybe more tangible like real estate. And I think we have to change this optic and show them that tech is participating in digitizing key economic sectors here in Africa, addressing urgent needs in many areas, and we should all, be together in this. And I think this is a big challenge.
I'm so glad you brought up the role of LPs. LPs, of course, play a really important role here as we start talking about how do you shift the ecosystem. You may take it in a different direction, Julian, but I wanted to make note of that. Julian, turning to you, what are your thoughts on some of the challenges that you've seen as an investor?
So I think at the end of the day, if we really want to change the table or turn around the table a little bit, we need to make sure that at every place in the ecosystem, at every place where we make decisions in the ecosystem, we have women. That's true at the startups level, where you need people in the funding team, you need people in the you need women in the management team, you need women in the board room as well. But if you look at the ecosystem of the investors, if I look at my own fund, I need to make sure I have female women at the investment committee side, at the GP side as well, but as well as LPs. If I look at my investor base, I have only less than 5% of the LPs that are female-driven. So if we really want to change the narrative, we need to make sure that at every stage when the decisions are made, we put women. And I'm really struggling on my side to find more women to invest in the fund. Because I think I discussed with a few people in the US, in Europe, the kind of generational wealth needed to bring LPs in the fund is not yet controlled by women. That's going to change. I think we are witnessing a generation of wealth created by women that are coming up, but it's going to take 1 or 2 generations still. So I think we need to be patient with that. On the other hand, when I looked at my own deal flow, I have very, very few female-driven funding team. And that need to change. And there's a very practical way now we can change it, because if we looked at the quality of the deal flow and of all the VC pipeline over the past 2 or 3 years, the quality and the depth of the deal flow changed dramatically for one, in my opinion, for one single reason. It's because we witnessed the rise of the mafias. Remember, like in the early days in the US, you had the PayPal mafia, all those guys that created, like Elon Musk and so on, created other businesses after PayPal, but we are seeing the same network effect in Africa. We have the Flutterwave guys, we have the Jumia guys, the Glovo guys, the MFS Africa guys, all those young managers that know how to run hypergrowth, how to talk to VCs. They all got the curriculum. But if we look at the management team of those early, unicorns, they are all male. So us as investors, if we really want to change something, we need to make sure that within our investee company, we need to put and to encourage women to be part of the management team. Not the funding team, but at least the management team. Just to make sure that they got the right curriculum, and when they want to do something, they're going to have the right credential for us investors to invest in. So I think we need to put women in position of decision making at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, this point on decision making and looking at every point essentially in the value chain, if you think about it, and startup ecosystems, and looking to influence those points and ensure that women are at every point. I think that that's definitely a takeaway that I'll have from the conversation. So now coming to you, Tahir.
You guys are like seeing
Yes.
everything.
So we've talked about LPs, right? Clearly that's one stakeholder if we think about the startup ecosystem. We've talked a bit about VCs. We started with the founder voice. Is there anyone that we're missing as we talk about challenges? What's your perspective on kind of that stakeholder breakdown? Who really sort of moves the needle or could move the needle in terms of shifting things for women in startup ecosystems across the continent?
So I think when we look at any of this, there's a question or a point around intentionality that Ife mentioned, and seeing that all the way through the system. And so if I just look back, or you just look at the stats, on this continent, 50% of the population is female, but then, hey? Yeah, I looked it up this morning. When you look at the State of Tech in Africa report, when you're looking at tech startups, in 2019, 20% had female representation in the founders, in the sort of founding team. But you move forward to the end of the last year that it was compiled, and that shifted down to 16%. Despite a significant sort of J-curve and an increase in allocations to startups. So, what that tells us is that money is still not going the right way, even more so now than before. And the only way to break that cycle is through intentionality. And intentionality doesn't just start at a community level. It doesn't just happen at an investor level. It actually also happens sort of at a governmental level, because if you think about who's doing most of the allocations across Africa, it's your DFIs, where they're getting their money from, So if you sort of have these states that are now putting in regulations, and I'm not saying we should be over-regulated, but there are incentives in place to stimulate this kind of thing, it becomes easier for the LPs to also put those into their mandates, which then gets carried over to the fund managers, and that goes further downstream to the startups as well. And what you start seeing happening is, because the LPs and the fund managers need to really see this pipeline, you start seeing them saying, okay, what are you doing with enterprise support organizations? We need that to help us curate this pipeline, to help develop those communities more so that they are more robust, so that we can say there's a really cool investment case for this particular company now. Government has a big role to play. The timeline to that, I don't know. I do think that government shouldn't be overlooked. Yeah.
Okay, so government is also a stakeholder in the conversation, certainly. We've seen in some markets, for example, government requiring, let's say, women to sit on board seats, to have a certain percentage of board seats. That's one example of what that can look like. But also from your example, if we think about where government shows up in the LP base, it's driving greater requirements or asking more questions. What do you see?
So I actually have, so a lot of people don't like this particular law in South Africa, but so we've got a BEE Act, it's Black Empowerment Act, just because of what happened historically. So, it's about redress and making sure that there's, more wealth allocation to other parts of the population, and more people can actually, who were previously disadvantaged, actually participate beneficially economically. So as much as a lot of people don't actually like that particular law, because it creates a burden potentially on companies, if you look at what has come out of that as a result, right? So we've had so many new initiatives and so forth coming out of that have actually empowered people who previously wouldn't have access to opportunities, or would have to fight that much harder to get those opportunities over the line. And then even with the SASME fund in particular, if you look at their mandate, they're a fund-of-fund manager, an LP, and they are supporting black fund managers, but also supporting fund managers that have an allocation to black founders in startups. So regulation, it does work. I think if we had something similar for women-led founders, we would definitely see a lot more happening.
Yeah, thank you for that. As someone who spent years working for a United States senator, I certainly understand the importance of policy and think that there is a role for governments to play across the continent, not just from the sort of LP perspective that we were talking about in terms of FDI, but also from this vantage point that you're talking about. Now, shifting the conversation a little bit, it's been great hearing from the investors on the panel and having you call out the various challenges that you see from your seats, and even beginning to touch on some of the opportunities or some of the ways that these challenges can be fixed. I want to turn more towards that part of the conversation. If we pick up these various points, whether we're talking about kind of the LPs in the conversation or we're talking about what VCs could be doing more, I want to go a layer deeper. So looking at those different stakeholders who all play a role as we think about that value chain again, I'd like to hear more from you on what you'd like to see those individual stakeholders do. And one that we haven't talked about is the corporate community. Putting myself a little bit on the hot seat, what could companies like AWS, for example, do more of? So include that in your answers as well. I'll come back to you, Ife, to get your perspective and then go to others on the panel.
Okay, so personally, I feel like we all have to be part of that value chain. So for example, I'm a startup, but I still invest in other startups. I still give out grants to other startups, right? So we all have a role to play. I've also seen corporates investing in angel funds, so in groups. So I've seen the likes of commercial banks in Nigeria investing in a Rising Tide, for example, or investing through a Rising Tide, which is, you know, a group of female angels who have come together to start investing. So I'm seeing a lot of people who are now taking investing more seriously and going through, you know, different various channels to actually invest in startups like us. I'm also seeing governments. So if you look at countries like Kenya, for example, I'm seeing there's a government play, you know, with Safaricom and all of that. So I'm seeing more and more people are now getting more interested in the startup ecosystem and investing in, you know, the small startups that are there. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, coming back to you, Julie.
Yes, I'd say that we're very lucky here in Africa because the ecosystem is very cooperative, and we should leverage on that because we all have the same goal, which is to pull it up as much as we can, right? So we all have an important role to play, and we're all binded to one another. So capital is important. VCs should give capital to startups, but not only, and I don't think it's the most important component. I think we should have a different role, which is to accompany the startups, help them grow, help them scale, introduce them, leverage on our networks, on different partnerships, public or private partnerships. And I think this is really key, especially when you're investing early stage, to help them scale and let them move to the next step. Then I think something else is very important is communication. I feel that in general, founders don't know all the initiatives that are out there. And I think there are a lot and there should be more, but there are very important ones and nobody's aware of it. And so there's a lack of communication, and I think it could be game changer.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's almost, you know, it's kind of low-hanging fruit when you talk about just increasing communication and ensuring that there's greater collaboration. Kind of picking up a little bit on that piece in particular before I turn to Julian and Tahir. I was just in Kenya and having conversations with investors there and founders, and that was one of the key kind of points that came out, that a lot of value would be served just by convening people more often for information sharing. Julian, coming to you and to Tahir next, what are your thoughts on this point about increasing collaboration? Do you see opportunities for that in the seats where you sit here in Dakar and in Cape Town? Coming to you next, yeah.
I'm not sure I'm gonna fully address your question, but I think I'm gonna relate to it. But I think
so the through line that we're on right now is kind of thinking about like what are the ways to shift some of the problems that we started out outlining. And I think that Julie rightfully pointed to that there is a lot of collaboration, but there's still opportunities to increase collaboration and communication amongst the stakeholders that we've ironed out. So we've talked about the role of the founder, the role of VCs, the LPs. So if we pick up on that point about collaboration and communication, what opportunities do you see?
Yeah, no, I got it, but let me develop a little bit. So, I think I want to come back to your point. So, which were, I think it's extremely important for any entrepreneur to have role models and to be able to say, she did it, I can do it as well. Okay, and I think we miss that. So I think we need more role model and we need more mentorship from women to other women. Specifically on one key subject, in my opinion, because when I discuss with, the best time to start a tech startup is when you have experience. You are in your 30s. That's exactly when you want to start a family as well. So, and I have a lot of female founders that I discuss with, but Julien, how do I run a new startup and how do I have a family in the same time? And I think everybody in the ecosystem should have the same reaction, say, it's okay, you can do it. Many people did it, and I'm gonna connect you with people that did it as well. And we're gonna help you to put system in place to have a baby or to have young kids, to run your family and be a successful entrepreneur as well. So I think that if you talk about collaboration into the ecosystem, we need all together to be extremely supportive to a young woman in their 30s that wants to create a startup and have a family in the same time. So I think that's the best collaboration. We need a village, we need an ecosystem to raise a kid. Okay, that's basically what I would like to say here.
Yeah, I think it's always important to be able to say, like, it's possible, right? I think that's hugely important. You need to be able to look out and to see individuals who have already done the thing that you want to do, whatever it is. So changing the question a little bit, Tahir, let's think a little bit about some of the success stories that you've seen. And I'm going to come back to Julian and Julie with this question as well. For founders that you've invested in, and maybe Ife too, you said you're writing checks as well. So Tahir, for founders that you have invested in, talking about women-led startups in particular, what can you call out a success story and what moved the needle for that founder? We'd love to hear a bit, going back to this kind of idea about the role of examples. What's one of the shining stars that you've invested in, and what are some of the lessons that can be drawn out from that founder to posit with this audience?
So I can talk about two potential success stories. One that's a success with an alternative perspective. So the one company actually is it's in our portfolio. It's a point of sale advertising opportunity. And that one in particular we took from pre-seed, now in seed stage, going into Series A pretty soon, doing really well. And that is a female-founded company. And one of the things that we did when we onboarded them was we made sure that she was given a voice, so we listened, we sat, we engaged. So we were quite supportive in that sense, but what really helped was that we actually believed in her capabilities because we looked at her background and we said, you're 100% what this business needs. So, I think there's support, and then just making sure that there's potentially a dedicated ear to that founder or founding team is really, really helpful. So I mentioned before, we do incubation, we got an accelerator program and do VC. And in our incubator, we had a company that didn't sort of make it commercially. They died before they got to market. It was 4 female founders. And we always knew going into it that it may or may not work, but we actually supported them because if it worked, it would be great. But what was more important, what was going to come out of that process, right? So sometimes, as an enterprise support organization, you actually need to look at the bigger picture. That very first opportunity that you back isn't necessarily going to be the opportunity that makes it. but that founder is going to learn tremendously and then move to a follow-on opportunity and take those learnings with him. And so, you know, there were 4 females, 2 of them went into corporate, 1 decided to pursue an academic, scientific career, and the other one actually went into to lead another startup, and then she's now since launched her own genomics startup, you know, and she's doing really well. So, you know, success isn't just backing somebody and making sure that they win with that particular idea or opportunity. It's making sure that you enable them to succeed beyond that in the future. So.
Absolutely. Coming to Ife in the middle, as we think about this question about success stories, are there any founders that you have, you mentioned kind of playing a role in helping to back other startups. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I like to say this kind of thing in stories. So there was a lady I met, her name is Shemun, she's the founder of Fairs Logistics. I met her in 2018, you know, helped her, you know, understand how to pitch, things like that, and then she eventually decided to launch her startup. 2022, she eventually won a grant from us, which was about 1.5 million, which is approximately $5,000. So she won that, and because the grants competition that we normally run every year is very, very visible, so she got a lot of visibility from that. She was able to collaborate with different organizations. She was able to get, you know, partnerships with the likes of Kuda Bank and Flutterwave, which increased her reach and the number of cards. So she now became like their preferred card delivery partner. So things like things that helped her were obviously mentorship, things like collaborating with other organizations, also visibility. So it's very important for organizations who have the eyes of the people to actually spotlight the women who are actually doing great work, and that way they're able to go out and launch businesses on their own, go out and scale businesses. Today, just last month, she announced a raise of over $1 million, and like I said, there are only 892 women who have done that in the world, so it's a big deal. So it's very, very important for you to spotlight those women, and they can literally go from 0 to 100 in a year if you actually give them the support, the mentorship, the partnerships, and all of that they need. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that, and I think what you're calling out is really everyone in the audience has a role to play, essentially, in helping to ensure that women are where they should be in the ecosystem, going back to the kind of the value chain idea. We're all a part of the conversation. Coming first to you, and then to you, Julian, to pick up on this conversation.
I just wanted to add that often, and I'm sorry to say that for the men out here, but men always feel they deserve more, and women always feel they deserve less. And so there's a lack of confidence. And I think women should be able, entrepreneurs, and I feel like I'm like an entrepreneur because raising a fund is the same thing, right? It's very difficult. We're in the same boat. And I feel that if you are able to put yourself out there, be more confident. And I'm thinking of a female founder who's actually right here in the crown, Biram Sok, who with Kweli. I think, and we're in Senegal, so I'd like to talk a bit about her. That's why, I mean, she's an example. She was able to leverage on her network and have a very successful startup, and she's a serial entrepreneur. I think this is very important, and it's really key to be able to unlock this. And I also believe that female founders should tap into VC female-led funds as a stepping stone, so that we're able, you know, to help them, connect them with the right person, and then they can go onwards from that.
Absolutely. Julian?
I'm very sorry, but the sound is so bad that I cannot get what you say. So can you repeat, please?
Oh, the sound is so bad. So we're just continuing this thread on opportunities and talking a bit about specifically the role that we all play in helping to ensure that women, just continuing the conversation.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to repeat myself, but I think we, intentionally or not, I think we need to make sure women are in places where decisions are made. I think that's all. If we have to focus on something, that's where we need to all make sure we play our part, okay? And we have all a responsibility. You as a GP, you as a founder, anybody in the ecosystem can, yeah. We have some LPs as well. So I think
awesome. I'm getting the signal that we're at time. So as we move to get some questions from the audience.
Yeah, we can take one question in the audience
Yeah.
for sure. Question in the audience?
While we're waiting on a question from the audience, Eva
Yeah,
wanted to
sure.
pick up on one piece, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to add, like as a founder, a female founder, I feel like it's important for you to create your own table. And I would just like to say my own story very briefly. So when we wanted to pivot to financial services to build our own fintech, at the time, it was very difficult. It seemed like it was very difficult to raise. But because we had already built a community and we already had created impact, for like people within the community had already benefited from the work that we were doing. I just went back to the community and I said, if you're interested in investing in what we're building, please let me know. And in 24 hours, we were able to raise $600,000. So it's very important for you, and this included individuals, angels, and VCs. So it's very important for you to be able to create that table, because if I didn't take that chance on myself, if I didn't believe in what I was building, I would have been running from VC to VC, trying to explain what I was trying to build, and no one would have gotten it. And one of the investors who actually backed me is actually in this room, Octera Capital. You know, they actually believed in what we were doing, and at the time, it was very, very difficult for us to explain what we're trying to build and why community was at the heart of what we're doing. Like I said, for women, it's very, very difficult. He mentioned that it's important for women to see other people who are role models who would say, person A did it, so I can do it, which is why, as we're giving these women the bank accounts right now, we're also giving them access to community to see other women who are doing big things like them. So we have so many people, out of the 892 women who have raised funding, over 1 million, I have a lot of those women within my community. So if other people are seeing these women and are tapping into their network, their knowledge, you know, they're building their capacity, then they know that, well, if it's not this year, it would eventually happen for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning to the question in the audience.
Hi. I've talked to a lot of female founders, and I kind of agree with you, Julie, what you said. Like, we ask for less. I don't, like, sometimes when I have discussions with other female founders and we talk about how much they're raising, it's always below what other all the male startup founders are raising, which is, I think that needs to change. And I think there's a lot of female entrepreneurs actually, but they're just not here. They're building their own business. They're not coming here to pitch. They're doing it by themselves. And there's a lot of phenomenal women out there, and I see it every day. I mean, there's a community of mothers who have their own businesses. They're out there, but I think, how do we get those women to showcase what they're doing and to raise the right money? Because, you know, I have a friend who has a school. She's asking for, I think, a quota of what she should be asking for. And, you know, how do we change that mindset? How do we get ourselves a little bit higher to say, don't ask for this, you deserve more than that? So I don't know, maybe it's a question, maybe question more comment also. I think community, I think it's great what you're doing for women, because we kind of need to kind of teach the other ones, hey, you can also do it. I mean, you can be up here, you can ask for $1 million, you can ask for $2 million. Who says what you should ask for? So I think this is very important, and I appreciate what you're doing with your communities.
Thanks, Shugabi.
We have another question here.
So just one last question.
Thank you so much. I wanted to understand from all of your perspectives the value of an accelerator versus capital. From my perspective, I think giving women the capital to do it is much better than taking them through an accelerator program. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Why are they mutually exclusive? Okay. But we're assuming that you're choosing between the two.
Well, I think there's been a bit of a push where there's a lot of accelerators, specifically trying to help women, but sometimes they don't have capital on the end, or sometimes the accelerator spends most of the money on kind of getting mentors and kind of those things, rather than actually giving women, you pitch us, you get 100K or something like that. Just what would, in your opinion, make the most difference, maybe?
Got it.
I can take that one.
Julie was also, do you want to start?
I just wanted to say that I used an accelerator to do the venture capital fund, and they didn't give us money, but they were key and a game changer for us, because we were able to close way faster than if we were on our own. We were able to avoid all the mistakes that we would have probably done if we were on our own. And I really think it's very important to have this structure with you. And I do recommend it for funds, for startups. I think it's really, really very important.
Julian, you also wanted to pick up on this.
I worked a bit in the media space, and we have a say where we say content is king, but distribution is King Kong. And I would say, if I do the analogy with your question, I would say accelerator is king, but capital is King Kong. Yeah.
That's a good analogy. Any last question? So just to kind of close out the conversation, I think that there have been a number of points across the discussion. A few stand out to me. One, I certainly leave with the takeaway of the importance of increasing communication and collaboration within ecosystems to ensure that there's information sharing. I think, Ife, you talked about the importance of fundraising, and capital, right? Going back to this, capital is King Kong, right? At the end of the day, it's the life's blood of anything that you're building. You need the capital to keep going. And then, Julian, I think what I take from your contributions is certainly the piece about the value chain and what each of us can do, whether you're an LP in the room, a GP, a founder, or you play a role in the government. Everyone has something that they can do to ensure that women have a seat at the table in ecosystems across the continent. And then to hear, you offered the piece about government, but you also talked about some of the examples that you've seen and what has really moved the needle for women in the ecosystem that you sit in. So this has been a great discussion. Thank you again to each of the panelists for taking some time out and being in conversation. If you haven't stopped by the AWS booth, please stop by and say hello, or feel free to find me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Charlotte. Thanks you all. Thanks to all our speakers for this very interesting panel about women in tech. Thanks a lot. And now we are going to move into the Femtech Startup pitching session with still the support of AWS. And the first startup we are going to host is Kweli with Biram Sok. So if you can come on stage. And I'm going to keep Charlotte on the jury. And also I'm calling Jojo Okran, Strategic Partnerships and Director at Africa SBC, and Sarah Medina, member of the board, SPI and SPI Ventures. So, Biram, the floor is yours. We are just waiting for Charlotte to finish. Just waiting for Charlotte to come back in the jury to start this first speech about Femme in Tech, Women in Tech, Femtech, with our one and only Biram Sok from Kweli.
Thank you, Senegal, and thank you, AfricArena. Hello, everyone. I know everyone is tired, but we will try to do this very quickly. So my name is Biram. I am the founder and CEO of Kweli. And Kweli really started as a conversation and a frustration about not finding African products on the shelves of international stores. We realized that a lot of people had tried to tackle the B2B marketplace, but just weren't successful at doing so. And so there's still an issue to be addressed. We did a lot of research and found out that basically it goes beyond technology. The reason we don't see these products internationally is because we have issues around packaging, around standards, but just also just having access to market. A lot of the people we have here working on products, agricultural products and cosmetics, do not have access. They usually, a lot of them are women, just tying it back to the conversation just before, and they don't have access to all of the skills and the resources to meet all of the standards. So when Quilly started, I know this conversation is all about technology, and we're here to pitch tech, so we started with tech. Have always been a developer. I started 2 technology companies in the US, exited both of them, and moved to Senegal 4 years ago just to be able to start the process of building Quilly. We started with technology, building the B2B marketplace, but very quickly, and I'm sure a lot of you other entrepreneurs will relate, you start with something and you end up with something else in Africa. And we ended up having to build a brand incubation program to be able to support these brands so that they were export ready, and be able to also make sure that we have all of the supply of packaging and filling, packing, labeling, so that we could meet all of the standards again. I apologize, but I can't see the presentation here. And so this is just an example of what we do on the brand incubation side. On the technology side, it is a full B2B platform, and where we focus on lead time, on minimum order quantity, knowing that we focus on cosmetics and food, as I mentioned. We also have private label options, and this is our packaging center. And so we started locally and looking to expand very quickly into other markets. We're currently here locally in most of the major retail stores and are growing pretty fast at the local level. We raised about $1 million in total from investors locally, but also outside of Africa, and are really focused on very key initiatives right now, which is exporting, making these products available in Europe and the US. So for us, the goal, our passion, is really changing the perspective and the perception that people have of Made in Africa, not only Made in Africa products, Made in Africa entrepreneurs, Made in Africa companies, and just Africa in general. So join me, please, in making this possible, knowing that we're raising $3 million today with an opportunity to participate in the bridge as we negotiate with our potential lead investor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Biram. So, for the jury, if you have any question for Biram, she's yours.
How do you source your brands for the incubator, and how do you select them?
We currently do it through a competition where we have a jury that selects these brands. We started with the first cohort of 10 brands, which was the very first one, and now we are currently working on 15 brands. We're going to soon be launching in Côte d'Ivoire another cohort, and then looking to launch one cohort per African country per quarter. We do have a few brands that come to us that are pretty ready for export, and when they are that close to being ready, then we can just incubate them automatically, knowing that we can fast forward them. The goal is in about 5 years, hopefully, we will not have to do a lot of this work that we currently do with these brands, because people would have built the ecosystem around it and understood the needs if they wanted to grow their market.
So I'll pick up here. Turning first to your expansion plans, you have Côte d'Ivoire listed. Where else do you have in mind beyond Côte d'Ivoire? What does the expansion look like, I guess, across the next year or two? And then also on the competition side, can you talk a little bit about the competitive landscape?
Sure, thank you for the question. So when we look at the expansion plan, there are really 2 sides to look at. There's the sourcing of the products and the suppliers, and that's primarily within Africa, actually exclusively within Africa. We're looking at Côte d'Ivoire and then potentially Ghana, RDC. We currently actually even looking to source tea from Kenya right away, because we have customers that are now asking for it. And so it will all depend as well on the demand. And then on the other side of things, there's the expansion on the export side, where we've already identified interest within Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and other countries here within Africa. But our main focus is also on making these products available, as I mentioned, in Europe and the US, where we're looking in the next 3 months to send these products in France to serve all of Europe, and in Florida to be able to serve the US.
Thank you.
Many thanks for the great presentation. Could you clarify a little bit about your business model? What are your expectations in terms of revenues within the, for instance, 1 and 2 years?
Sure. So our business model is actually negotiating the bulk price of the products with the local suppliers. And then we are more of a distributor than a marketplace, because we are the ones that negotiate and set the pricing for these products based on the cost of packaging, knowing that we're able to buy it in bulk, but also based on the price of these products on these particular markets that we target. These margins are between 10 and 30% here locally and above 30% internationally. And what we do is for any margin above 30%, we share that extra margin back with the supplier as an incentive so that they are also empowered as we're able to place their products internationally.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Biram.
Thank you,
Thanks
everyone.
a lot. So, let me call our Oreonix on stage. So, welcome on stage, please. So you can change. issue, so I think that slides are going to come back. So I will invite you in the meantime, if you go in some Senegalese stores, to be aware about our Kweli products because she's definitely changing what our African product look like, and this is definitely a market opening and market opportunity for so many women entrepreneurs in a very important field, agriculture, where we have also a lot of women, and I think that Biram is doing also a very interesting and amazing job. So, are we ready upstairs? Maybe Michelle, we can we can talk a little bit more about the previous panel. We were talking about women in tech. I think that this was the most interesting thing for me today, because all my work is about women entrepreneurship and women ecosystem. So it is very interesting to hear all these expertise talking about what we are understanding more and more on how to support women entrepreneurs in Africa. We talk about giving them more access to finance, and also we talk about mentorship, we talk about role model. I think that all those things are very key to make sure that we have a very welcoming also ecosystem for women entrepreneurs. And also I think that the point about making women understand that they deserve more and they can have also more is very key on shifting their mind on what they can have and what they can do. So it was very interesting to have all these insights around. I don't know whether maybe we can continue the conversation about that in the meantime. We definitely need the slide for her. So,
yeah, I appreciate you recapping a little bit some of the points from the panel, right? I certainly enjoyed the conversation. That piece about resetting your own expectations, I think is something that we can all kind of take with us, certainly. I appreciate you kind of calling that out again. And we talked a little bit just in the hallway. I wanted to get your perspective on the Senegalese ecosystem in particular, and wanting to know more about what your thoughts were on how we kind of really strengthen the role of women here. So what do you think on that community point? That came up on the conversation too, like how to create more community, more collaboration.
Yeah, it's very interesting because Gabby was talking about community for a very right reason. We are creating a lot of magic in women community in Senegal. We have a very dynamic one, which is called YAI, where we put together women and mother and mom entrepreneurs. And I think that in those community, we can, all that thing we were talking about, shifting the mind, making some role model, and also making them understand that they deserve more. I think that it's in the community we can spread that, and in the community we can share that and make sure that we have a very, audience that is understanding what we are trying to do, and which is also open, because most of the time why community are very efficient, it's because women need a very specific area, and also to be able to share and also to get the information to them. And we do a lot of work about the imposter syndrome. So this is also, even when it's come to information, they say that, okay, why I'm going to check about raising $1 billion because I'm not ready for that, I cannot do that. It's still this issue about imposter syndrome, and I think that in the community, when you are linked together, you can see that another one is doing that, so why I'm not able to do it also. So yeah, I think that is very interesting, and maybe your fellow in the jury can give additional word about that or comments.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add though, there's research that I often like to highlight on this point about thinking about the imposter syndrome and also how it shows up in the fundraising process. There's a Harvard Business School professor, Dr. Huang, who's researched how women and other underrepresented founders perform when they're fundraising. And part of her research has pointed out the fact that often women may not promote themselves as much. So when they're asked questions that might be, let's say, more negative, that one of the ways to actually counteract that is to provide information, to respond to it directly, answering kind of very succinctly the information that's being asked, but then to turn that moment into a promotional opportunity actually leads to better outcomes in the fundraising process. And what we've been doing at AWS is actually training women all over the world on that framework. We offer a workshop called Pitching Better. If anyone kind of listening in is curious about learning more, feel free to find me or email me. My email is cln@amazon.com. I think I just gave that out to everyone listening.
Very
That'll be
easy.
fun.
And
but Jojo and Sarah may also have things that they
but
want to add.
I think that we have the technique back and the slide back. But yeah, let's continue the conversation during the afternoon. So welcome again. This is Oreonix. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Keleu Esoninam Amélie from Togo. I'm the CEO of Oreonix, and I want to tell you about my solution. Okay. Global awareness and equality education for all people are the problem who mean the world actually. This world have a lot of problems like equality, education for people, and our challenges right now is how to manage universities, how to manage poor waste at university, to don't have a problem, to don't give to students a lot of sickness in the future. This is the one we make Oreonix. Oreonix is a platform which combine. Oreonix is a solution, a tech solution which combine eco-responsibility and education for youth among the Africa. We want just to combine climate and eco-responsibility to youth people to the future in a few years. Our solution, sorry, okay, I will go into my own, okay. Our solution, we started on 2019, and we started in our University of Lomé because we know that we have a problem. This problem, firstly, is we don't have a place to do. If we go to school, we don't have a place, and a lot of time we don't have how to manage the communication in school. And in COVID-19, we know that we have a lot of problem with having a platform we can do online courses. It is of that we created Oreonix solution. And after this, we know that the COVID-19 bring us a lot of sickness. This lot of sickness is coming, is about nature and about climate. And we combine this solution to create a platform which can, one, do online courses for people, online courses, and two, we want to sensibilize students about the problem of sustainable future. We want to manage this all in our solution. We are four who are making this solution. I am the COO of the platform, and we have a developer who is back-end developer, and one engineer. Okay. Our challenges right now is to find investors, investors who can help us, and we once again advising partners who can give us advice for the platform, because we want to deploy our solution in all the African university who can be on the platform, and in this way we can do the election every year of the most clearly university. It will be eco-responsible for the university. Our social impact is to provide education of quality education. In our platform, we can make a lot of courses in the same moment. A lot of people can be connected on the same moment, like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. And we want to be eco-responsible. It is the second impact social. In 2026, we want to be developed in all Africa, to be used in all universities in Africa. And our challenges right now is to find an investors who can help us or who can provide us an advices. Thank you.
Bravo. It was challenging, but it's all, entrepreneurship is all about challenge. Bravo. So please, maybe we can take some question from the jury.
So it looks like your solution has amazing impact, and I'm excited to hear more. But how are you going to scale sustainably across, let's say, the region and eventually, like you said, right, to the universities across Africa? What's the revenue model that's going to help you do that?
Firstly, Oreonis is an autonomous system. We can provide online courses in our own solution. It is an AI. In this way, we can send the solution to NGOs, and we can sell the solution to, again, students and universities. It is our target market, and if university come on the platform, it's going to be for 1 year. They can manage their intern and external system of the university in the platform.
So first, I just want to commend you for going forward and being persistent. It's not easy when you're pitching, and then to add technical glitches and just all of what comes with this moment. I just commend you for that. So thank you. Picking up on the question piece, I have a couple, just to make sure I understand everything. We're kind of dealing with some information on slides and some not. So if I look at, you said you started in Lomé and you are selling into universities, but a component of this, right, is ensuring that students actually take the courses. So what have you seen in terms of your penetration and adoption rate with students once you sell into the university? I'd love to hear that figure, and then I may have some follow-ups there.
Firstly, we know that nobody have developed this solution after us. We don't have technology in Africa who can provide online courses in Africa. It don't exist. It don't exist a solution who can interconnect university among Africa. I think it is an innovation, and to enter on the market, we have firstly our University of Lomé, who right now is testing the solution with us. We have 4,000 users right now who are testing the solution in University of Lomé.
Okay, 4,000.
Yeah.
And when you rolled it out at the University of Lomé, was it offered to a larger number of students or just that 4,000?
No, students are not just 4,000.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what have you seen about the adoption amongst that 4,000, their actual completion rate of the course?
Right now it is very good. We are trusting every month we are doing a big test to know how people can be on the platform and how the platform will resist to a lot of people connected on the same time. And right now it is very good. We don't have a problem with that.
Sorry, I need to cut it there. We are really running out of time, so I'm really sorry. And I will let you continue the conversation after. AfricArena is all about, connecting, networking. Bravo. So I'm calling Marwa from Ilecom.
Hello everyone, my name is Marwa. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ilaicom. We want to make ethical e-commerce possible for all of Africa. Do you know why African entrepreneurs don't sell on the web? For many reasons. First, because in Africa, the internet penetration rate is less than 45%, which means lack of access to the new technology and low technical background. Second, the inability to receive international payment. Maybe you know in Tunisia, for example, we don't have PayPal, no Stripe. And third, because there is a complexity of export and high duty customers. Here comes Ilaicom, an impact marketplace connecting engaged African entrepreneur to international buyer. So through Ilaicom online shop, the entrepreneur can sell natural cosmetic, upcycling fashion, art, craft, etc., without worrying about export, payment, shipping, while receiving training on e-commerce. So every entrepreneur can create quickly a store. They even can connect his website with our marketplace, and also he can even integrate his product in other international marketplaces like Etsy and Amazon. So we are operating in two markets, the sellers who are in Africa and the buyers who are mainly in Europe and America. We estimated a total available market of $300 million, and we want to reach $10 million for the sellers. For the buyers, $2 billion are estimated, and we want to reach in 4 years $25 million by focusing on digital marketing. Sorry. So we earn money by commission and subscription. There is a starter which is free, and the pro which contain customized e-commerce services. So there is a competitive landscape with some existing players like Etsy and also African marketplace like AfricArena. But Ilaicom is uniquely positioned because we make impact on the local and the global scale. For the buyers, we assess the product for the sustainability and authenticity, and in Africa we uplift local economy by helping entrepreneurs to access to global consumers and sell across multiple channels. So we tested and validated the Tunisian market. We have 300 Tunisian sellers. Our GMV is growing. Today we have more than $6,000 per month, $13,000 coming from training e-commerce service per month, and also we are proud to have a sustainable partner with Aramex, and this work has been done thanks to incubation like Made Africa, Open Startup Tunisia, and Pulse in France. So we set up a clear roadmap. This year we want to automate as much as possible the onboarding of the sellers. We want to reach 500 sellers by the end of this year. The next year we want to develop our own marketplace, automate the whole process, and open up to the Senegalese market, and that's why I'm here today. And we want to reach 1,000 sellers and $1 million of the total revenue. Next year, in 2025, we want to open up to Morocco, and then reach $6 million by focusing on digital marketing campaigns. So today that's why we are raising $500,000 to develop our marketplace, to have several digital marketing campaigns, and to fix many legal and fiscal problems, recruiting other members on the team, and also fees to open up to other markets. We are proud to have investors and funds from different structures like Digital Africa, Meet Africa, BPI France, and GIZ. This is our team. We're coming from different backgrounds, especially on e-commerce and digital marketing. I'm the CEO. I'm an industrial engineer with a PhD. I'm very active in the social entrepreneur ecosystem. Here is my co-founder. He's an expert on e-commerce with 6 years experience in big company like Air France. Sodexo, our CTO also, he's expert on IT architecture. Together, we want to make digital e-commerce accessible for all of Africa. Thank you.
Bravo, Marwa. Merci beaucoup. So yeah, have any questions?
Thank you so much for the great presentation. Could you tell me a little bit more about the team, if the team is full-time, if it's part-time, and also in terms of your expectations of what you are going to generate in terms of market demands, and if you are already making any sales and how much sales you are already making. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So as I said, our team is, we are between France and Tunisia. We are incorporated in FAX in Tunisia and also in Paris. The founders are based between the two countries. We studied in France. So my co-founder, he's expert on e-commerce. He worked with Edenred, Sodexo, Air France, etc. He is the PMO of our of Ilaicom. Sid, who is the CTO, and he works on all the technical part of the marketplace. He is an IT architect with 7 years of experience. He worked with Intermarché, an instrument called AXA, which is very known. We have other salaries who are based in Tunisia, especially working on digital marketing. We try to attract clients for our vendors who are also our clients. Also, we have commercials, so we try to attract also vendors from Tunisia, and now we want to go to, for example, Senegal market. So I'm the CEO. I have a PhD and I'm engineer, industrial engineer. I'm very interested by the social entrepreneur. So my mission is to have this environmental and social impact. So the next question was, sorry.
The sales, how much did you already sell?
Today we have a GMV of $6,000 per month. We are selling on Ilaicom, but also on the international marketplace Etsy. Without really making a lot of effort on marketing. But today we're gonna focus on this and attracting more sales.
Thank you. I just have a quick comment. Looking at that 500K breakdown for what you need to raise to make it to, I guess, the next stage, I would take a look at those numbers. Some of them I didn't quite buy in terms of like I think that the number should be a little bit higher in some cases, like legal and fiscal support, the marketing budget, if you're talking about expanding in international markets. I would just take a second look at that.
I didn't really understand your question. Can you repeat it, please?
It was a comment. You had the slide on what you hope to raise. It was 500K.
Yeah.
I would take a second look at that value and stress test it if that really is enough to reach the benchmarks that you described.
We want to raise 500,000 of dollars, especially to have our own marketplace. We want to develop our own marketplace with new feature, automate the whole process. This is the main part of the raising, and then the digital to fund the digital marketing campaigns, recruit the teams, and also the part of legal and fiscal support.
J'ai compris.
Oui.
J'ai compris, mais je ne pense que suffit. Ça suffit.
C'est beaucoup, vous trouvez? pour le... C'est pas assez.
Ouais. Et
oui,
je vous invite aussi
mais on peut continuer la discussion.
À poursuivre ce soir, justement, durant la soirée au Bouma. Merci beaucoup, Marwa. Bravo. So, and the next one, you already know her, her economy. So, Ife. The floor is yours.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm back again on stage. My name is Ifedro Simi-Esi and I'm the founder of AfricArena. And what AfricArena is, we're creating a better economic future for women and women-owned businesses. So my mom is a lawyer by profession and my dad is a chemical engineer. But growing up, when my mom had my sister and I, she decided to take a back burner and take care of my sister and I. 17 years down the line, she wanted to start a business and she realized that she had no savings, but she had a bank account. When I started to do more research, I realized that a lot of women in Africa actually have this challenge. When they start having children, they take the back burner to take care of those children, and at the end of the day, they realize down the road that they don't have any savings. This situation is not peculiar to my mom alone. Currently in Nigeria, there are only about 37% of women who have access to formal financial accounts. You would also find that women also lack vibrant communities, like we said earlier during the during the speaking engagement. Women also, you're seeing that they're taking more and more opportunities and joining communities. So today, they're deciding to do better with their businesses. What have we provided as a company with AfricArena? We've decided to create a platform where women can actually save and earn up to 10% interest on their savings automatically. We're also providing discounts on women-centric products and services that women use on a day-to-day. For example, salons, restaurants, seeing a gynecologist, groceries, they all get up to 30% discounts. And we also provide that community where they can see other women who are like them, who are doing great in whatever chosen field that they decide to do, whether it's in their career or in their businesses. The market is huge. Well, I would say something that's very funny. Even though we see women in Nigeria and even in Africa who don't have access to bank accounts, you would find out that women are actually the ones who are spending the money in their homes. So their husbands go out to make the money, but when they come back home, they're the ones that 70% of that money is the women who are spending. So the women are actually the decision makers when it comes to where the spending is going to. So why don't you provide that bank account for them so that they can actually grow their wealth? So the female economy is huge, which means that the market opportunity is huge. What is our ideal customer profile? We have working professionals, we have entrepreneurs, and we have students who are in higher institutions who are making money on the side when they're in school and also are thinking of saving and growing their wealth. Our customer attributes are women between the ages of 25 and 35, women who have access to a mobile phone. We're also even working on a USSD profile so that the women who don't have access to smartphones can also tap into the opportunity that we have built. Our traction is absolutely fantastic. In 2019, we started us as a community, mainly just giving women access to capacity building, but we grew to about 31,000 members of our community, and we got feedback from this community, which was what led us to build our financial services product. In 2021, when we decided to raise, like I mentioned earlier, we raised $600,000 in 24 hours from our community, and this is also changing the mindset of these women, because you see, in the past, women don't necessarily invest in tech companies. Women normally invest in other things, and some of them don't even want to take a chance or take a risk with their investment. So it was a huge eye-opener for us that women were actually interested in investing in her economy. Also, we launched our savings product in 2022 last year in April, and today we have over 77,000 users. We're currently earning about $8,000 in monthly recurring revenue, and we're growing month on month significantly. And we're currently doing a seed round of $2 million with the goal of getting to 250,000 users by 2023 December. Our revenue model is very simple. We are earning 8.5% interest on top of what we give back to our users. We're also earning a commission on bill payments. Very soon we'll be earning a commission on the merchants that are on our platform. These are all of our target milestones. We have partner institutions like Providence Bank, VFD, Stripe, AXA, Mansat. So obviously your money is safe. These are our financial projections. We have a competitive edge because we're female focused and we have the leg into the female economy. So we're tapping into the female economy. We have a growing list of merchants who are on our platform today. We have over 100 merchants on our platform who give the up to 30% discount on our platform. Our leadership team is fantastic. I personally have managed the $15 million fund. We have a CTO who has built various fintech products. Our CFO has been in banking and insurance, and our CEO also came from banking. We're raising $2 million. We've already raised 700 for joining us. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Any
Ife.
questions, please?
All right. Hello again, Ife. Quick question. So you mentioned a few ways that you make money. What's the biggest driver? Is it commissions or is it the return on the deposits?
Return on the deposits. Yeah.
Got it. And then one kind of last question. If I look at the 100 partners that you have signed up, that's fantastic. What's the kind of timeline to add more? What does that look like?
Oh, we're looking to get to, the reason why we haven't even added, because we have people, over 1,000 people who are on our wait list, but the reason why we haven't added them on is because we're building technology for those payments to actually go through on our app so that we can also generate income from that. But we don't want too many people on it yet so that it doesn't discourage them. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess for me, the question is really, what's next, right? We've seen you grow an incredible community, a community that's willing to support you. What's next, as you're becoming a fintech, right? What's next for that community element?
Oh, the community is always going to be there. We still have like a job board, for example, where we are still providing like job opportunities and connecting the women to different opportunities. We still have our Telegram group, and we still maintain our monthly in-person events where we come together as a community, have conversations, and see how we can help each other, grow in either our businesses or in our careers. So the community element is very huge, and I'm excited that a lot of our investors even understand that the community element is very huge, so they know that they're not going to say, oh, now it's just fintech you're going to do. They know that we have to carry the community along. And what is even more important is that the community also invested in what we are building, so the community is along on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are you all working full-time on this?
Oh, yes, full-time for 3 years. Yeah.
And where do you see, like in the 6 months, where do you see the company going?
Oh, currently we're in Nigeria. We're looking to expand to Ghana, Kenya, Senegal as well. We also did Startup Bootcamp here in Senegal, so we're already having conversations with people on the ground, speaking to influencers, and trying to leverage some of the connections and opportunities that we see on the African market.
Are you also looking at Europe?
Yes, Europe and Latin America, because they have similar issues like we have in Africa.
Okay, because with the Enrich in Africa and with the Steinbeis and Metis and Startup Bootcamp and the other partners, we can help you in Europe as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Bravo.
Oh,
congratulations.
thank
you. No more questions? I see that you have a lot of support and fans. Thanks a lot. Thanks to our jury. Thanks to our jury for this Women in Tech part. Thanks a lot for being here, for the very interesting question and also the conversation. Let's continue the conversation together until tonight at the Boma with the VC Nice. Thanks a lot. A round of applause for our jury. Thank you. So, after Women in Tech, we are going to move straight to the part which is dedicated to logistics, which a person we do not introduce anymore in Senegal, Omar Bass from Yobante Express. Please, Omar, welcome. You can do the same for him as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's a tremendous honor to be standing among you today as the founder and the CEO of Yobant Express. My name is Umar Boss. I'm a second time around startup founder. I'm a computer science engineer, and I have over a decade of experience in digital, 1 year PhD in machine learning. Today, I'm going to discuss about our remarkable 5,000 years old journey on how we scaled our startup across Africa and the world. In this discussion, we will be happy to share the challenges we faced, the strategies we employed, and the unremarkable lessons we learned across the way. I'll be starting sharing what we have done at the country level, starting with how all Yobant Express journey started. Please. Yobant Express is a story of two founders, myself and my co-founder, Badra Badji. When coming out of school and building my first startup, Nano Air, I was having so many orders coming from real smallholders farmers. And then one thing that was coming out usually was the logistic aspect of that. So we was getting so many orders, and it coming that sometimes having to pay the logistic fees was like a little bit higher or equal to the same thing that we was, charging to the clients for the product. So the other alternatives was going by ourselves, or either way, leveraging on the informal delivery networks. And that's just lacking trackability, accountability, and your parcel could end up like getting lost with no way for you to get a refund. So when we realized that that informal network actually could sometimes work, but it's really lacking accountability, trackability, and with no customer service. We built the first version of Yobant Express platform, and with the mission to make affordable, easy, and safe to send a parcel in cities, between cities and villages, and countries to countries. With the first version, when we started, we was completing 50 deliveries per day. So after support that we had from Startup Bootcamp program and then the acceleration, so we managed to have more understanding on what we was building from, the strategical level. So we went running our first pilots where the opportunity meets with the geographic position that we was at that time. That was almost at the end of 2019 in South Africa, Cape Town. So another important thing that we learned along that journey was overcoming skepticism, because being able to convince investors and stakeholders to get in your project, that was one of the hardest things. So we're gonna share about other things that also we learned so far. So we managed to build our first scaling up operations coming from a francophone country, Senegal. By the way, this is our home market. This is where all this started. And then running our first advertising campaigns cost us over $5,000. At that time, that was a lot of money for us, right? And then we lost that all without getting any conversion. So when we was running our customer discovery, we find out that maybe it's because of we're in a city, Cape Town. I love the city, by the way. It's super developed, and then you have great infrastructures. And then we say maybe, the money that we put in that campaign was just drawing into huge corporate campaigns that running around and targeting these plaza shop owners. And then we realized that the problem was just because of we were targeting people with a great advertising, of course, with a good target, but actually the language that we was using that was natural to us, like the English language, was not the one that was used by, the target that we wanted to convert as, as partners, as, hub agent for the Yobante Express infrastructure. So once we learned that, we switched the language to other languages, to Urdu language, Swahili, and Arabic. We managed to have the first conversions. And then that's one of the things. And then building and assembling a winning team. So being able to inspire other high-level local talents to join your product, that also one of the things that we are more proud of, taking it from an example of Zambia. So we went from looking for a talented entrepreneur that could help us build locally the Yobante Express brand in Zambia. So one of our connections was Mutuba Ngoma. So that guy was literally building fuel and soap products out of jatropha seeds, right? And then he was on the Forbes under 30 list of African entrepreneurs to watch. So we were saying that might not be possible for us to get that type of talent at that early stage of, what we was, of course we was demonstrating that in other countries. And then actually we realized that it's a long time now that he wanted to, partner with Yobante Express. So now not only we have him, but we have other talented local entrepreneurs that are working with us, and the journey is just started at that point. So another key aspect of that is the penetration of the local market. So it's exactly the understanding of the local context. It's important. So what we're seeing, so many models from other startups, I'm not like showing them to the bus, but what I'm saying here is clearly extrapolating a European model or a US model in Africa will not work if you don't take into consideration the local context. So with Yobante, we did bottom up. We went from that informal existing infrastructure to formalize and leveraging on a data-driven approach and using machine learning to connect the dots. So that's one of the things that also did the trick for us. And then another important thing that you might take into consideration is the understanding of how structural challenges, such as addressing, such as getting data that will help you understand more and build, your company on top of those informations. So we definitely did some, homeworks on that. First of all, getting access to the data on the markets was not easy because the only available data at that time in Senegal, for instance, even when we go back to, our first months of operations, was from INSD. And then those data was only available for formal logistics companies. But for the informal network, there was not such information on it. And then when you go to the population level, people are used more to the informal network of deliveries than the formal ones. So we did overcome that by doing our own market research. And then that pointed out that there is 4x more deliveries that are happening on the informal network than in the formal network. So, and another thing that is really important is building trust and reputation. Because getting your early client on board, we're happy to announce one of our first clients was Soreto, one of the first business clients, one of the leading food processed company in Senegal. So what's happened was we had that great founder. I do recall when the US President Barack Obama came to Senegal, he just mentioned two people. The first one, I guess, you guys know him, Youssou N'Dour, and the other one was Awa Kaba. Awa Kaba is the founder of Soreto. So Awa was dealing with the logistics herself. I mean, she was dispatching her own orders, and she was completing the deliveries with her local stuff. So she wanted to learn more and understand more about her clients' needs and to get feedbacks on the product that she's selling. So the first time that we're trying to convince Awa to work with us, she was saying, this is what's important for us. And then understanding that connections and building a strong connection. And we went simply from being, hey, you could just test it out for a week at least. And if that's solving your problem, then here we go. And that's exactly what we did. And we're still happy to have Awa Kaba still was one of our over 600 business clients. And another important thing is being able to provide a solution that could solve, the local, needs. Another interesting point is being able to identify opportunities. So through research and analysis on the potential markets. Of course, that part, I really love that the most. It's being able to hire the best people and, of course, fire the idiots. And, of course, so that's something that we're not talking much about, firing. We're always talking about hiring. But it's also something that you have to do in order to have the best people on your team. So another point is being pragmatic. So, one of the best definitions of being pragmatic was given by a Chinese leader, Mr. Deng Xiaoping, I guess. He said that if a cat is white or a cat is black, it doesn't matter. As long as the cat catches mice, it's a good cat. So being able to make the right decisions and being able to be pragmatic so that you could leapfrog and then test some assumption out, go to the market, and then learn from that. So another point is being able to navigate and to understand international regulations and legalities. And of course, creating partnerships. One of the partnerships that we're also proud of is cooperating with MPOS, the simple addressing solutions in Kenya that is serving over 200,000 users in Kenya. So being able to have that vision and to have a partnership, a win-win partnership approach with other players in other regions. And of course, building and establishing a global brand. So one of the other things that also could fuel the growth is what we said earlier, the data-driving approach, and of course, leveraging on cutting-edge technologies to, sustain or build a sustainable growth. So the lessons that we learned from that 5,000 years old journey is definitely forecasting a culture of innovation and adaptability. And of course, going to the success is learning from pilots, as we said earlier, from POCs if necessary, and of course, pivoting when it's needed. So the future of Yobante, we're now about to close our Series A round where we have, where we have 15 million of $30 million as a Series A round that we're closing so that we could go and deliver in all 54 countries. So we're now operating in 24 markets. We have office presences in 11 markets, including the home market, Senegal, and a bunch of others. So we want to allow anyone to deliver at any places at a lower cost versus any other player. So that people will just rather build something that is similar to Yobante that will probably take years, or just partner with Yobante and then keep their margins. So that is what I wanted to share with you guys. So if you have questions, I'll be happy to try to answer to that. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Omar.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot. I have the mic for the audience. So any question in the audience for Omar? I have there, Gabi, I'm coming.
Hey, Omar. How's it going?
Hey, good in yourself.
You're a hero. My question is for the partnerships that you're building. Are they also still running their startups? Like, how do you get them to work with you? I wanted to understand this.
So, when you're scaling a business in another country, At the beginning, you do not, as I'm saying, the image of that is you don't need a bazooka to kill a fly, right? So which means at the beginning, when you want to test some assumptions out, you don't need all that firepower in a single direction. So you'll be making so many efforts with, not acceptable results. So what we was looking for was someone that have enough credibility at the local level and someone that could solve problems locally when that happened. So the other things we will provide we will provide the support on marketing, we'll provide the support on strategy. We already have the tech. So we don't need much more than the local context understanding and someone that will solve the problem and someone that could build a local team that could, let's say tropicalize our brand at the local level so that when local support is needed, we could provide the general support from the HQ and then let, the local team directly interact with the clients and the providers. So that at that point, we just needed someone that don't need to be involved at 100% on the operations. It could be a founder that is already doing something else. But, at the end of that, he himself might ending up focused 100% on Yobante, and that's what's happening at that point. So when he built, sufficiently enough, that local brand presence of Yobante, so that he don't want to work on something else. He will just keep on working on the Yobante Express. So that's exactly what's happened. So at that point, so we're adding a country lead in addition to the country director, so that the country lead will be some sort of the operational guy that will do the day operation needs for the business. So that's how we're handling it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Gabby. We have another question here.
Thank you so much. My question is about something you talked about. It's about the context. How do you manage to communicate the kind of context that's in Africa to your investors? Because one of the biggest challenge we face is you tell somebody about your product, for example, my product, and they ask you, why don't they just use an ATM card? And how do you navigate that kind of, challenge?
So, well, that's a very tough question.
But you have to have a startup response very quick.
Yeah, exactly. So, the simple answer to that will be I get a lot of help, so to be honest with you. And then the other longer version of that answer might be I myself has an experience understanding things at the local level, so that what's happened with Yobante is something that you're seeing similarly to all the major cities. You could see people shipping parcels on rooftop of taxis, buses from Dakar, Nairobi, Lagos, Accra, Cape Town. That might be the type of vehicle that might be different, or even the name of the vehicle. But you see people doing the exact same thing, even if that they're not speaking the same language. So for us, that was understanding, of course, the differences on how we should interact on building the Yobante Express infrastructure on the local level, so that learning from our past and previous experiences, of course, mainly from the home market, Senegal, but each market also has its own difference. So always learning. The more and more we're entering in more countries, the more we learn. And then, of course, we had great help, great support. And then one of the things that we think is one of our key values is we're very coachable. Of course, we know what we want, but if you're seeing assumptions or suggestions that might be helpful for us, we're happy to test that out and to see how that will work. That's exactly how we're doing it. Thanks.
Thank you. And very last, very quick question.
I prefer not to ask it. Maybe we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to have the conversation with you afterwards.
Thanks a lot. I owe you a drink. I owe you a drink.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, Omar. Thanks a lot. Thank you
welcome.
for being here. Thanks for...
You're welcome, Senabu. Thank you so much.
For giving us so much insight about this incredible success story, Yobante Express.
an iPhone on the stairs. My iPhone is broken, so if someone have an iPhone who doesn't need it, I'm going to keep it with me. This one. I found this one on the stairs. If someone have lost his iPhone, maybe you can come after and find me. So just a reminder also for our VC night at the Boomer Lifestyle Hotel starting at 6:30 p.m. today. So we hope to see you there, all of you, to continue the conversation. And right now we are going to move to the pitching session for logistics startup. First one, please, Togo Cargo, if you can come in stage. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Saint-Don Wilfried Abiré. I'm the founder and CEO of EasyChain. EasyChain is a tech logistics startup based in Lomé, Togo. We are specialized in ocean freight, air freight, and road freight. I started my professional career by getting a bachelor's in accounting and finance. I decided to discover the world, and I flew to South Africa. After sailing for more than 1 year, I decided to enter the aviation industry, where I was based in Togo. Through that, I've been lucky enough to travel the world and meet exceptional people. One thing all these places had in common was it was nearly impossible to send anything to my family. When living in Togo, for example, I wanted to send some packages to my family in Côte d'Ivoire. I have to mention that both countries are 1 hour apart by air. However, it was still impossible to send shipments. All my attempts to ship by air were very expensive. I was not able to track my routes, and by road, they always almost got lost. It was a frustrating situation. I discussed the situation with one of my friends, who is a small business owner importing electronic devices from China. Kofi said to me that one of the biggest issues for him regarding shipping operation was the payment of his suppliers abroad, as he doesn't have a bank account like many other small business owners in Togo. Similar to my experience, he was losing items due to a lack of visibility from his supplier to his warehouse in Togo. I did some research and discovered this was a continental issue. We decided to change things. In November 2020, EasyChain was born. EasyChain is a logistics digital dashboard that enables small businesses to track, manage, and monitor all their shipping operation. With EasyChain, small businesses can also pay their suppliers abroad in foreign currencies. We're confident about the change EasyChain will bring, because since we began, we've been able to get more than 700 customers, sending and receiving more than 500 shipments every month. Our target market is small businesses located in Francophone Africa that are importing and exporting goods. We plan to acquire them through a combination of online and offline channels. Why small businesses? More than 80% of companies in Africa are small and medium enterprises. Why now? More than 80% of foods and apparels used in Africa are imported, and yet it's very hard to do so. At the moment, we are making money from the revenue derived from the shipping operation charged to the customers. We also plan to increase our revenue streams with our platform fees, as well as a processing fee with each financial transaction, where we earn $5 as commission. We also plan to get up to 15% as commission paid by shipping lines and airlines we work with. Since the end of 2022, we have an average revenue of $22,000, a growth rate month on month on 20%, and we delivered internationally more than 5,000 shipments. Our target market represents more than $144 million. Based on our current trajectory, we are confident we can acquire 30 small businesses in Togo that fit our criteria. We sit on a huge opportunity of upwards of $2 billion in Francophone West and Central Africa. Our competitors are the incumbent logistic providers based in Togo, such as DHL, FedEx, and UPS. We stand out from the competition because apart from the freight forwarding services we all offer, EasyChain offers to the customers financial service, door-to-door tracking, payment local currencies, and our customers can choose the type of transportation which is not able with the other competitors. My name is Sendon Wilfried Dabire. I'm the founder and CEO of EasyChain, and I'm working with my co-founder and CTO, Doran Moko, who is in charge of the development of the application. We are surrounded by 9 wonderful employees who are in charge of the daily shipping operation and the development of the application. We're asking for $500,000 for the launch of EasyChain mobile app in Togo and to get more customers to acquire 1 million in revenue. We also plan to expand in other Francophone countries such as Benin, Senegal, and Cote d'Ivoire. We appreciate your support with introduction to potential customers or partners and for the growth strategy of our business. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sandon. Thanks a lot. So if the jury has some question.
Testing. Testing. What's your timeline to that 1 million, given where you are now?
Okay, right now, our main revenues come from the shipping operation that we charge to the customers, and we operating all the shipping by ocean freight that represents 7% of our revenue, and 30% is divided between air freight and road freight. We plan to acquire the 1 million because we'll expand EasyChain first in Togo, in the north part, where there are big towns in Togo with many merchants that are needing our products. But we plan also to expand in Benin, that is a neighborhood country, where we already have clients. And if we reach more than 30 small business countries in Togo that fit our criteria, we can easily reach the 1 million per year.
And then what does it take for you to onboard a merchant? You know, given that they're small businesses, like, is it quite a lot of effort? So I know you do the advertising. I assume that's online. Is there any offline component, training, and that sort of thing?
Okay, we acquire the customers through a combination of online channels and offline channels. Online channels is mainly with Facebook and WhatsApp. It's what the small businesses use a lot. And also with offline channels by participating in trade shows or business events. And right now we are acquiring more customers with Facebook ads and Google Ads campaign that we already started and we continue every day.
What's your strategy with you guys, the targets expanding? What's your strategy in terms of expanding outside of Togo and the rest of Africa, especially on the import-export side? Yeah.
Okay, right now our strategy is to expand because our target market is Francophone countries. And the first target market for us is to expand in West Africa, where small businesses are located in Francophone countries, and then we plan to expand to Central Africa. So we start our goal to market with the launch of EasyChain, and with the offline online channels we put at disposal of our clients, we can easily get them.
Yes, one more question. How do you do to give the $5 for a pound price? Because it's supposed to differ dependent of the tax and all.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I said I've seen your price was $5 for a pound, right?
Yes.
Yes. Is it included in the tax?
No, it's not included tax.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, it's not included tax. Right now, we're making money from the revenue derived from the shipping operation, and we plan to launch EasyChain in August, and we earn $5 on each financial transaction because there will be 2 features on the platform. The one is for the payment of supplies abroad in foreign currencies, and the second is the tracking and monitoring of the shipments.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot. Have more questions?
Yeah, just one last question. Just with the future sort of, are you not thinking that by charging that commission to the shipping lines, etc., they're going to end up pushing up the price, and then maybe your customer base becomes a little bit unhappy about that?
Okay, no, the commission are paid by the shipping line airlines work. For example, if Togo Cargo right now send 20 containers per month with my line, we'll charge the customer first. it's ranged from 5 to 15%. That is our margin on any shipment. But at the end of the year, as we're working as a broker for the shipping line, they will pay back 15% as commission on the 20 containers we shipped. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sando. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. You can applaud him. And I'm calling Mad on stage. Is Mad or Mad? I don't know. It's a private joke.
But it's a good introduction. Hello everyone, my name is Sidi, co-founder of MAD. We're building Amazon for the informal retailers in Francophone Africa. So yes, as an introduction, I wanted to tell you why we are called MAD. MAD is a Senegalese fruit that you can only find in Senegal. And you have other companies like Apple, Orange that choose random fruit names. We are doing the same with MAD. We want to showcase MAD to the world. And if you're adventurous, you can try to have one after this talk. So the context, as many of you may know, a lot of the consumption in Francophone Africa and in Africa in general happens in informal retail shops, actually about 90%. And there is about 1 million retail shops in Francophone Africa that are selling close to $100 billion worth of products. The problem with having a retail network this fragmented is that there is a lot of middlemen between the suppliers and the retailers. So the retailers, they experience very high prices and a low service quality, and the suppliers, they struggle to place new products on the market, and they lack visibility on what's happening. So our solution is to bridge the gap between the two, so the retailers, they can order from our one-stop shop and have more than 500 SKUs they can order from, and they have transparent and competitive prices. And on the other side, the manufacturers have live view on what is happening on the market and the ability to push and promote products. To dig deeper on our solution, so we build a complete suite of tools. So for the retailers, they have a mobile app for ordering, but we go deeper than that. We also help them digitize their activities. So they have, for instance, a bookkeeping app they can use for various activities. On the other side, the brands, they have a complete SaaS and data analytical platform where they can view live product performance, they can know how they perform against competition, and they can also advertise products to the retailers. And internally, what we have is a field and data collection platform. So everything from sales to delivery, we have built a complete tech stack that is allowing us to make operations that used to be very complex to make that simple and seamless. So our traction so far, we've been able to onboard 60 of the largest FMCG manufacturers in the country, including the likes of Coke and Pepsi and many more. And we have more than 600 SKUs that are available. That has allowed us to drive incredible retailer growth. So we've been growing consistently at more than 20% month over month. And we've just reached $1.2 million of monthly GMV. And our revenue retention is actually close to 100% over 12 months. Our business model is simple. On the commerce side, we have about 5 to 8% take rate on the GMV. We have a fixed fee for the businesses, and we have financial services where we charge interest rates. So our team, we have, I can say it because I'm not part of it, best-in-class tech talent. So people that are coming from Airbnb. Karmi used to be product manager at Amadeus, one of the largest IT companies in Europe. Myself, I previously co-founded a food delivery startup here in Dakar, and I spent 4 years working in private equity and investment banking. And Maimouna launched the FMCG category of Jumia in Senegal. So there is a lot of players active in this space. The first thing is that we have a first mover advantage today in Francophone Africa. And the second is that we don't only position ourselves as a wholesaler, we try to be a strategic distributor for the brand, which allows us to create unfair supply advantage, to have high take rates and high product availability. And the second is capital efficiency. We manage to lower our working capital needs and also have very low operating and distribution costs. And today, our distribution center is operating profitably. And so far, we've only raised 600K to get to 14 million of annualized GMV. So currently, we're raising 1.2 to profitably get to 50 million in annual GMV and $3 million in revenue. And there is about 500K remaining in the round. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mad. Mad, it's the season. You can enjoy it at all.
Interesting. I noticed that you had IFC on your pitch deck. Are they giving you capital?
No, I used to work at IFC, unfortunately.
Okay. And then the other question that I have was, why are you potentially raising VC money? Because your company seems to be doing quite well. And if you are doing that well, you could potentially just go and get some debt, to help facilitate your growth.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, part of the round, it's a debt and equity round. And we have 500K in debt that's already secured, and a part of it is raised locally. And yes, we're using the debt to fund some part of our business because we are very close to profitability and we know that we can service that debt when it comes. And the other reason why we are raising is also because we are very ambitious. We can keep growing profitably, but we also want to have some room to grow even faster and still maintain cash flow.
What are your, so going from where you are now, like what's your next region of interest? How do you go about facilitating that?
Yeah.
Do you have to set up somewhere else, set up new bank accounts? Like how does that work?
So when we have to set up in a new country, typically Francophone Africa, there's about 15 countries. One of our next target markets is Côte d'Ivoire, which is larger than Senegal. So going there obviously requires building new distribution partnerships because they don't necessarily scale across countries. You can have the multinational like Nestle, Unilever that are present everywhere, but the bulk of what's happening is actually a lot of local suppliers, so we need to go there, build those local relationships, and have the right assortment, and on the other side, go and onboard retailers on the field. So there is some manual work that has to be done to expand into a new country, but we feel like it's something that's manageable. If you don't have questions, it's fine.
Two things. I think that, it's okay? You sure? So bravo, thanks a lot, Mad. Mad, je vais y arriver. C'est Bouye Bissam, on va y arriver. Thanks a lot. So the next startup is Zando. So welcome on stage.
Hey, thank you guys. You all have access to my deck. You can have it at any time, read it through, you know everything. But I'm going to tell you the reason why we designed Zando. I live in the Netherlands, but not because I like Europe. I escaped poverty in Africa. How can we make sure that our young generations are not going to follow us, thinking Europe is the best place to be, or the US? Industrial revolution finished poverty in Europe. Don't we have manufacturing in Africa? We do, right? Yes. If we can give these guys the opportunity to take the advantage of our entire African market, 1.3 billion consumers, we will make it. We will have these people produce massively and hire massively, and we will be done with poverty. We think we have too much people? No. If we have massive production, our manufacturers will become big companies as well. Because if you produce in Senegal and you know that you have the markets of South Africa available to you, within one click, as a trader or a retailer in Senegal, I can just buy from South Africa, and my brother here will revolutionize the logistics and take it over. Guys, we make it. We are called Zando, the African global marketplace, a multi-vendor one. Our vision is to be the most inclusive trading platform for entrepreneurs in the world, and businesses of all sizes, and doesn't matter where you're from.
If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be here because we all know the Alibaba, we all know the Amazons, right? If they solved that problem for us, I wouldn't be here today. So, you want to be part of it? I saw Zakaria in the room here earlier. 4 years ago, it was just an idea. The platform did not exist. I sent him my deck with an idea, but he never responded. Actually, we were on a platform having a meeting online, and he was suggesting something like this, that a global e-commerce that can change Africa will start in one country. He was and I was doing exactly that. After the meeting, I sent him my deck. He never responded. That was about 3 years ago. But today, we have got to this point. We launched it last year in March in Nairobi, and it's doing great. But if we did have investors, we would already have all the manufacturer in Nigeria, all the manufacturer in South Africa, all the manufacturer in Egypt, in Kenya, online. Guys, this will prevent African traders from buying from China because everything they're buying from China today, we made them in Africa, but they just don't know. How can you know that? If you are an investor in the room, if you want to change the world, if you want to be part of the next big thing, join me. You can work with us. You can invest, do anything, even advice. It should be great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot, Frank. I think that we hear your point.
My deck is accessible, though.
The
Anyone
deck is
can have it.
accessible. We understood. So does the jury has any question about Zendo to Frank?
Hi, thanks very much for this presentation, but how do you make money?
Simple, just like others are making. We are not the first company to bring this technology in Africa. We use sales commissions at a very minimum one because we only do connect manufacturers to their buyers. And we take commission between 5% and 3% only. But we also charge them the right to sell on our platform. Those are the subscription annually. We are meant to become the biggest trading platform, not only in Africa. Let's start in Africa as we start in Africa. Therefore, anyone who would like to launch a new product for African markets, not only for a small country like Senegal, anyone who would like to let African markets know about their product, will come there to let the people know. So we'll be selling the ads. So ads, subscriptions, and commissions.
Yeah, what is your strategy to expand from Senegal if you are going to be the Africa's biggest or the global marketplace? How are you going to get somebody, a small trader in South Africa, to use your platform?
Can we get back to my deck, please? I have another slide there about our go-to-market strategy. Please, the time is running, though.
This one?
No, they are above. Go on. Look at this thing, guys. Think right now, all the sellers on our platform are able to sell in Senegal. But how can we make Senegal know? Man, this SEO stuff, this digital marketing, is so expensive. We cannot afford that. That's why we're here. We made it in Kenya, but the power, my background is a sales. So my own experience helped us really bring the market to the product to the market. But to go to another level, we need cash. In July, though, we're starting in Tanzania and Uganda at the same time, so that we can already have the entire Eastern Africa from July. But we want the core producers in Africa. Those are Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, and Kenya. We want those manufacturers online first.
So you're saying at the moment the manufacturing base is in Kenya. So where are people buying from at the moment? Which countries are they buying from? Outside of Kenya?
Both within and across border, and it's actually, internet accessible anywhere, right?
Thanks a lot, Frank. Thanks
you.
a lot for the presentation. I'm calling now our last startup, Atimex.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Serine Saloumba Kisso. I'm the co-founder of AfricArena Senegal. But I just want to tell you, my level in English is not great, but I try to be clear and brief. So, AfricArena Senegal is an intelligent logistics founded in 2020. Our mission is international transport of goods and mail between Europe and West Africa. And our target is to become one of the leading in international transport between Europe and Africa. And we propose 4 services. It's freight, air and sea, container and cargo rental, shipping worldwide, purchasing solution, and matchmaking for connect the merchant, the African American, and European supplier. So, to accomplish our mission, we're developing a platform, and the customer can create an account, order history, newsletter. We have a system of tracking the container or cargo, and the customer can can request quotation, purchasing, and pick up in Europe or Africa, and prepare a delivery. So, Atimex in number. During the last 3 years, we have been able to appropriate 3 warehouses, 2 in Dakar and 1 in France. We have 8 vehicles and between France, Dakar, and Ivory Coast. And between 2021 and 2022, we realized 71 shipment by sea, and every day we have a shipment by air, and we have delivered 15,048. Excuse me, and for accelerate and expansion, we need to recruiting staff for enlarges our service in Africa. I create a new vehicle to be able more operational and have a largest warehouse to make a storage and have a more working capital to attack a biggest market. Well, and recently we have 2 awards. Atimex is best performing air cargo company awards performance in between France and Senegal, and most innovative ocean freight company awards. Thank you, and excuse me for the label.
Bravo, you made it. You made it.
I will
That's
try.
the more important thing. So, some question from the jury?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Are you profitable today? Do you make money? Est-ce que tu es rentable?
I make money. Mon chiffre d'affaires in 2022 is on fait between 10 and 15 million francs CFA of benefits in 2022. Yeah.
Would you say, la présentation, c'est magnifique.
Oh, thank you. I'll try.
Would you say that you are a delivery company, or would you say that you are a marketplace, or both? Because I saw that you were speaking about warehousing as well and getting vehicles, which makes me think last mile, but you're also talking about the freight as well, getting stuff over. So I'm assuming people can create orders and things on your platform as well. Why are you doing both? I think that's my question.
I don't see. Can you try it? Excuse me.
La question c'est est-ce que tu es une marketplace de logistique
Yes.
ou alors aussi une société qui fait vraiment de la logistique et de la livraison et jusqu'à la livraison
Yes,
dernière.
we have a marketplace. We have atimex.sn, and in the platform you can take order to pick up and prevent your delivery, and we can pick up your package in your house and deliver in other side of the ASEAN and deliver at the house. Thank you. It's just a transport door to door. C'est bon? Merci.
Bravo, Cyril. Je vais prendre le pointeur. Merci beaucoup. Bravo. You did the effort to speak English. Bravo. I think that we are done with the startup pitching session in logistics. I hope that, and I'm very sure that you had some really interesting presentation and very innovative presentation as well. And tonight we are going to continue the conversation as you have his pitch deck, and also you have all the information. You can continue the conversation at the BOMA at the VC night. Thanks a lot to our jury. Thank you. Now, we are moving forward to our next panel discussion about building more collaboration between VC and CVC in Africa. And I'm calling Georgie Kiange to host this conversation as a moderator and also to present our speaker. Thanks a lot for joining us. A round of applause to our panel speakers. Thanks a lot, Jordi. I'll let you introduce them.
Yes, no problem at all. Thank you very much for still being here and alive. So I will introduce you people. I'm always afraid to make a mistake on family names, so I will just call your name. Don't take it in an offensive way, please. Please, Jordan, if you can come.
Thank you.
I will let you just say a quick word about yourself, what you are doing.
Okay, so my name is Jordan. I'm corporate innovator at Orange Senegal. Donc, one key part of my job is to design, implement, and monitor innovation program within our company. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Hi, Maji. I will let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maji Sok, and I'm the co-founder of Haske Ventures.
Great. Hi, Jill. I will let you introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. I am an associate at Newtown Partners. We are the corporate venture capital fund for DP World and Imperial. Thanks so much.
Hi, Zach. Very good. I will let you introduce yourself. Yeah, you trying to be dynamic, like corporate VC, you know, to stay alive. Of course, of course.
Yeah, I'm Zach George. I'm the co-managing partner of Launch Africa Ventures, which is a prominent early stage VC fund on the continent.
Great. Sorry, it's the end of the day. The TIEP was very good, so this is probably why. Great. Very happy to animate today this session with this panel. Very insightful session. The goal today is to speak about cooperation between corporate venture and venture capital. So I will start directly with you, Jordan. It's true that a lot of people are speaking about corporate ventures and so on. It's very difficult sometimes to define it. And it's also very counter-natural to see corporate and VC collaborate because the goal of a startup is to disrupt your market and eat you. So why are you working with startups?
Thank you. It's a very important this question. Corporate work with startup for innovate. Because big corporation, we have a lack of agility. Donc we need to work with startup to move fast in terms of time to market. And we want to start up to access new technologies, innovative solution, and search new business model to start up, get new market trends and insight in startup, and at the end we need to test rapid experimentation with startup. Yeah.
Great. That's a very good summary regarding why corporates want to work with startups. I would be very happy to have your opinion on this, Jill, especially that you are working on something very particular at Newton. So if I can have your opinion on this.
Yeah, it's always an interesting question about why do corporates want to work with startups. I think the major reason is that startups are entering the space and changing the basis of competition. So if these corporates want to keep innovating and want to actually be at the forefront and actually compete, they have to realize and start working with startups that have, as Jordan was saying, the agility to be able to innovate, interestingly. The other way is that it's actually sometimes a cheaper way to test out a new business model or a new market. You don't have to take a controlling stake in a business. You can invest earlier, and you can, instead of doing a large $100 million acquisition, you can kind of just give $1 million, see how that market works, see how that business model does. And instead of building out a whole new product range for your customers, you can actually just see, do your customers actually want it? And then finally, it's a great way to invest in growing the demand of your business. So we actually are in the process of closing an agri-tech investment, even though DP World is an Imperial logistics and port operators. The reason is this agri-tech is going to be exporting goods outside of Africa, and that's going to need a lot of ports and delivery, and that'll drive the demand for their services. Yeah.
Great. That's very, very clear. And if now we try to address and speak with early stage investors, I know that in the previous slides I was working in a corporate VC, and the way that early stage VC were looking at us was quite different, and the expectations were different. So Maggie, as an early stage investor, what are you expecting from a corporate that is entering the cap table of your portfolio company?
Yeah, thank you. And it's been interesting to hear the other reasons and how we can align. There's no one size fits all, obviously. For us, it's been about market expansion and strengthening regional value chains. You've heard a lot of the Senegalese entrepreneurs talk about the need to quickly expand to other countries within the region or broadly in Africa or even outside. One example for us has been a recent company we co-invested with Yolele, which is, I don't know if some of you know the fonio value chain. It's a company that works in the US and distributes processed fonio products. Many of you have probably heard about Chef Pierre Thiam. And the reason we were interested in co-investing with them is they're able to invest in Mali in securing a bit more of the supply of fonio and to do some value addition in Senegal. And obviously they understand the recipes, they understand the distribution within the US, so they're also able to quickly bring some of the standards that will allow the new venture we're building together to sell in Europe and Asia. So really accelerating that expansion into other markets and strengthening regional value chains.
Great. That's a lot of expectations. Zach, speaking a little bit, because in North Africa you have been investing in a bunch of companies in a lot of geographies. What are your expectations, and are you putting a little bit more pressure on corporate when they are trying to enter the cap table of one of your portfolio companies?
Yeah. So if you look at markets outside of Africa, Asia, and Latin America, corporate venture capital is at one point, close to 40% of all venture capital at one point in the US was corporate-backed venture capital. So either corporates running their own CVCs or corporates as significant LPs in retail VC funds. I would advise against corporates trying to do venture for the sake of doing venture because everyone else is doing it. Because there is this divorce, if I may use that word, between the CEO and his or her team and the CFO and their team. And I'll explain what that is in a quick second. But it's essentially the moment a venture capital division at a corporate has an expectation to deliver value to the corporate's bottom line, two important things happen. One is a lot of projects that are high IRR and high commercial and economic value add may get canned because they don't help the corporate in its bottom line directly, or it takes a much longer time to achieve that, or it requires lots of layers of approvals, etc., etc. That's a fundamental disconnect, and it can cause a lot of bottlenecks. The second thing is it is linked to performance of certain divisions in a corporate that may not be aligned. So, for example, if you're a large insurance company and something works really well for your short-term insurance team, but it doesn't work for your long-term insurance team, how do you justify, no matter how high a project is, how does it justify both your divisions? So, true corporate venture capital needs to sit outside a corporate through an SPV or through a third-party fund. Or if a corporate wants to be the sole LP, which I think is the case in Newtown's case, or maybe one of two LPs, I'm not sure, then it has to be a hands-off relationship. It has to be a third-party fund managed by individual VC experts, not corporate execs, where at best a corporate should have a seat on the investment committee, but not enough to veto any or all deals that come through it. So I can speak for hours about this, but this is a high level. The intent behind a CVC needs to be established before it's actually established. I'll sort of leave it at that, and we can take more questions later.
Very good, because you are creating a bridge with the next question and also the constraints that corporate can have. It's true that it's counter nature, and it can be very difficult sometimes for a CVC to exist in a big corporate, because you can just try to do what someone else is doing, and sometimes you don't have all the information. So in Orange, for example, and Sonatel, how was built this corporate VC approach? Is it something that, because I saw you nudging about the SPV and the fact that it should be something separate, is it something that has been done? If not, why?
So I would like to say it's very strangling to make this kind of collaboration between startup and corporate venture approach, because we, as Zach has said, we can see a real culture clash in terms of in timing, in terms of high level of bureaucracy about corporate processes. We can see two different language, two different mindset. And my role as corporate innovator is stabilize this situation and improve this collaboration, because CVC can kill the startup with corporate processes, and startup don't have a time to wait the CFO for validation, and our corporate approach on corporate KPIs, financial KPIs, ROE, etc. So I think we need to build CVC outside the company, outside the mindset of company, create a new organization with more agility and more flexibility to work with startup. Yes, that's my opinion.
This is a very valid point. Maggie, do you have something to add perhaps on those constraints?
Yeah, I think it depends on the maturity of the private sector. So I definitely don't think, maybe we're talking about South Africa, where you have a more dense private sector, and a corporate will have more options in terms of who to subcontract and work with. But in markets, I think in Senegal, like many other countries, there's still a lot of work to do in terms of building those options, building the ecosystems, where I think we need to allow for more flexibility. And more incentives for the likes of Sonatel, Orange, how they engage to build or invest in startups. So I think it depends a little bit on the maturity of the private sector, depending on where you are.
I also fully agree with that, and I believe that it's also important to discuss about the differences in terms of trend depending on the different geographies, because what you said is very specific to South Africa, but I will say also with different sectors. So Jill, did you notice some, I would say, difference between the way that CVCs are operating West Africa, Southeast Africa? I will probably start with Jordan, and then I'll go with Jill concerning this. The differences between the different CVC based on the geographies. Yes, West Africa, East Africa,
yes, yes, we can see a great difference, not on West or Central West Africa, but because in terms of English zone, Anglophone zone, and French zone, because in our mindset, we need to go slow. We go slow in terms of process, in terms of way of working, and in English zone, Anglophone zone, we can see a fast mindset about how you make your business and how you make to work. So I think in Senegal, in West Africa and French zone, we need to learn more from Nigeria, from Ghana, to improve our process when we decide to start collaboration. We started through CVC, the dispositif, etc. That's my opinion, yes.
Okay. Jill, do you agree with that, that it's a francophone versus English-speaking, let's say, clash and mindset?
Well, it's interesting, we are a South African corporate venture capital fund, but we actually mostly invest in East, West, and North Africa. We prefer not to invest in South Africa just at this point. We'd still obviously look at it, but we've seen a lot more opportunities in East, West, and North Africa, mostly just because I think there's less of that. There's more problems to be solved. There's less infrastructure that you have. Thank you. So I think because there's larger problems to be solved, it's less of kind of that formalized economy sometimes. You actually have bigger opportunities in our mind. In terms of different trends, though, I think we are still very much at the start of corporate venture capital. When we're looking at South Africa, which has, a large, stock exchange, all of your corporates are probably listed. The problem is that that's not the case in the likes of Nigeria, Kenya, or even Egypt, actually. So, and even in South Africa, I mean, we are the only CVC in South Africa with Imperial, and it was a very long road to get them to agree to this. They actually ended up, before they agreed to sign on with us as a corporate VC, they actually tried to do investments themselves, and that was exactly the issue. You had your CFO saying, why are we doing these investments if they're not adding to our bottom line? And they had to fail at that and then come back and actually work with entrepreneurs and angel investors who had shown that they were good at finding decent startups that were innovating and changing the basis of competition. So I think we're still at the very beginning. I think it's a bit more mature in South Africa, but I think as we start to see more VCs start kind of coming out, you'll see it happen in the rest of those markets.
I agree on this, and sorry, I will just excuse Jordan that needs to attend a very important meeting. Thank you very much, Jordan.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. See you tonight at Boma.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was saying that I agree with what you said with the maturity in South Africa, but also with the fact that the effect of a CVC will also depend on the local ecosystem. We have a lot of global CVC that are investing in different geographies, different sectors, and the way that they will invest will really depend on those characteristics. Zach, to go back perhaps on what you said just before, but also to add, catching up on these trends, do you see, and we saw the news of Naspers, just before this year for several reasons, but do you think that there is different trends, like are CVC much more bullish on Francophone Africa, avoiding some different countries? How do you see it?
CVC trends in different markets? Is that the question? Yeah, I was funny enough saying this at a similar AfricArena event in Johannesburg just about 2 months ago, two and a half months ago, is I don't think it's so much about the power of corporate venture capital in Africa is a lot stronger than one thinks. But in Africa versus the rest of the world is because Africa, and I say this with all humility and without upsetting people, Africa is run by oligopolies, right? Let's not kid ourselves. We've got, take what's the largest insurance company in French West Africa? Saham, right? Who owns Saham? Who owns Saham? Does no one know? Yeah, so it's owned by Sanlam, which is a huge insurance conglomerate in South Africa. One of the largest insurance companies in Kenya is UAP, and they're owned by Old Mutual, and Old Mutual is a South African insurance company. So if you look at sectors like insurance, banking, retail, and telcos, they're run by oligopolies, 4 or 5 big players, and they control distribution across the whole continent through fully owned subsidiaries. Now, that alone gives you access to hundreds of millions of customers that startup founders and VCs would have to spend years of time, money, resources to acquire. And a corporate already has it. So if you think corporate VC can be super strategic in general, in Africa it could work even more because of the oligopolistic nature of distribution in these four big industries: insurance, banking, telco, and retail. So if someone like an MTN, I know Orange is here, I'm just giving examples, can really do a CVC across the whole continent and have sub-funds allocated through all their regional subsidiaries on the continent, the purchasing power of that CVC would be so huge, it would literally put every other major non-CVC out of business. Because let's take, for example, an AI startup, right? For an AI startup, I need customer data sets, real customer data sets in order to run my models. I could go to a late-stage African VC, and there are lots of good ones, Briga and Partech and Africinvest and lots of Notion 22, and they will add a certain amount of value. But if I were to go hypothetically to MTN Ventures or Orange Ventures, and they were structured in such a way that I could get access to all of the telco's data sets, why would I ever take money as a B2B startup in Africa from anyone but a corporate VC? But sadly, the corporate VCs just aren't set up with that level of scale and efficiency. Hence, founders are left with no choice but to go and take money from regular VCs and then wait for years to get the value they would have gotten from a corporate VC. Did you get it? Yeah. All right. But again, I don't work for a corporate, so.
Not yet, huh?
You can hire me as an advisor. Just kidding.
I agree. That makes a lot of sense. The one thing I would say, though, is you're dealing with corporates that understand the value of the things they've built. So to give a startup that kind of data, it's hard for them to do that because then they have their own CTOs, their own tech officers. If they can, give someone their data, why would they give it to an outsider? Why would they not build it themselves? And when you speak about a lot of these corporate VCs haven't been structured in a way that, enables them to move fast, that's exactly the problem. You're dealing with, a corporate that takes a long, long time to actually engage with the startup. Often they look at the startup and they say, "You're too small. I don't know what I'm going to do with you." And why would giving you access to this when everyone wants access to that, why would that benefit me more? So I think that's the play you have to make, is that yes, there's a whole bunch of value, but you're almost having to fight with a Goliath at all times. So I think the thing that we've tried to do at Newtown Partners is very much be that Chinese wall between your corporate and your startup. So you're not having shared information between there. You're not, and you're not having CFOs come to the startup and saying, "Why are you not profitable yet?" And you can build on the relation to slowly say, "Okay, if you do give us the data, we'll give this back to you," and that's the value there. So you do need that Chinese wall, and sometimes it might not be there as much, but also it's a timing thing. Corporates are slow, and it takes a long time, even to convince them to invest sometimes. Small check sizes, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's fine, we don't even care about that." But when you start getting to that 2 million, 3 million, it takes a lot more work to get it done.
Yeah, you said it, corporates can be slow. I will not say they are slow. I've been in a corporate, I cannot criticize too much. But we saw also in different sectors that the effect that an CVC can have, pushing a lot of investment. I believe that before we saw it, and we are still seeing it with clean tech, energy access companies. My question for Maji will be much more, what are the sectors that you see and you think can leverage more to have CVCs being involved in their operations?
Yeah, and I'll tie it to what's been shared. I agree with a lot of what's been shared, but also we have to believe that corporates are not just about maximizing profit, and there might be other reasons why they will choose to start or launch a CVC and collaborate locally. What we're seeing here, I will not name, but for example, one of our local gas station chains, what's important to them is also to sustain the made in Senegal story, everything you have around the gas station. So they might choose to invest based on that principle. That's not just about maximizing value in the short or medium term. I'm not saying they're trying to do things for free. So that might tie to also, depending if you're in a country where the government support does matter, blended finance does matter also, it might influence how a CVC engages for some facilities or some support that you might get from some of these programs or additional funding. So I think there are these other elements. And based on that, for example, today in Senegal, if you're going to engage in anything industrialization, those are the sectors that you would look into. Anything that's about also import substitution, those sectors will have a strong chance. So I think, I don't want to list sectors per se, but being more strategic, CVCs or corporates can be a lot more strategic in how they select sectors and actors to work with.
Okay, I see. Zach, do you want to name some sectors, or Jill, some sectors where you believe that?
I wouldn't name a sector, but I would say that any sector that lacks kind of digitization or has been slow to take on technology to innovate. So for example, logistics actually been very slow, and they've been seeing these startups entering the space and been able to change that basis of competition just by using tech. And that makes it really easy to sell. You're going to get out-competed if you don't invest in understanding where that tech is going to go in future. So I think that's quite a nice way, is that if that industry is changing and moving quite fast and the startups are able to kind of leapfrog ahead of the corporates, that's where the corporates really should pay attention.
Okay, I see. I want also to add a sector that I believe might benefit from it. It's mobility, especially with the fact that now we have big, I would say, energies company, we cannot say oil and gas anymore, that have some solid SDG objectives. So this is also a way for them to see the innovation, especially that in terms of mobility. I mean, we can speak about the problematics on big cities and so on. There's a lot of things that can be done. And I was speaking with another founder here and was saying that the benefit of having a large CVC was that he was able to tap a lot of things that was not possible because of their support. Last but not least, and we probably have 2 minutes, is concerning the exit. This is also something that we're expecting sometimes from corporate. Do you believe that we will see much more exit over the next few years from startups, like selling their, some founders, selling their companies to CVCs? Zach, do you want to start with it?
Yeah, let's start with some circumstantial evidence. So in South Africa, at least, South Africa is a very acquisitive ecosystem for corporates. Corporates usually, the corporates that do invest in startups almost exclusively do so with a full intention of buying them in 3 or 4 or 5 years. The more mature CVCs can do significant minority stakes, which is typically 25% or more. But I don't think we've got to that level of evolution where corporates can treat CVC investments purely based on merit and could do, a single-digit percentage investment in a company. It's very hard to get to that level of understanding, unfortunately. I don't think that if a corporate invests in a company purely to acquire it, that it is a financially sound decision for the corporate or for the founder, and not certainly for the ecosystem. If you look at the average multiple on revenue, transaction volume, EBITDA, whatever the case may be, and look at all the corporate acquisitions, those multiples are horribly low. They help with liquidity in the ecosystem, but the multiples aren't that great. So if you are sold to either a larger tech startup, so I know this example has been given before, but I want to just repeat it. You know, when a smart tech, a fintech like a Stripe buys Paystack, or when a smart fintech like, you know, in Senegal, let's talk about local numbers here, you know, Wave and World Remit. Those multiples on revenue were really good, you know, like you'd see in North America or Europe or anywhere else. And then you flip it and look at the multiples on revenue for a corporate acquisition of a startup, horribly low. I mean, like not even 5 times revenue, sometimes 1 times revenue if you're lucky, right? So does it create liquidity for a founder? Yeah. Does it help the ecosystem? Absolutely not. Because corporates are doing it for acqui-hire reasons, and often, to use a millennial term, FOMO. They're like, I don't know what this tiny startup that does payments is doing to attract a whole bunch of Gen Zs and millennials as customers. Okay, let's just buy them so we can acquire these customers, without any strategy for what they would do post the acquisition. And then you have this term called golden handcuffs, where the founder is forced to work for a corporate for 2 or 3 years, else he or she would lose his vesting rights on his shares. So I'm not a big fan of corporates doing CVC with the purpose of acquiring it for no real strategy. I would be really happy if corporates that have CVCs are comfortable coming in early and taking single-digit equity stakes in these companies, or investing through SAVEs or convertible notes with caps, and then seeing how a company grows versus trying to acquire it. Because if someone knows, and this is the last point I'll make, sorry, I'm going on too much here, is often it can also be a counter-negative signal if a corporate has a 10% or more stake pre-Series A. Because then you're like, wait a minute, so any distribution outside of that corporate's value chain is never going to happen, and we got to somehow figure out how can we buy them out. And then the cap table gets messy, and so if anything, it could be a negative signal if a corporate VC has a very high stake in a company, and then the only path to exit is that corporate buying them out. So you've actually screwed the startup, right? And then the founder has no other option. So
I'd like to just say that we do take single-digit stakes.
Good. Hallelujah.
We do not take 10%. For us, we like to think of ourselves as not investing in the potential acquisitions of DP World and Imperial. We like to think of ourselves as investing in their potential partners. So we want our startups to IPO, to be bought out by a large tech company. And we think that the strategic relevance of investing in these startups for DP World and Imperial is the access that it provides them. They get access to seeing how new business models work. They get access to how technology can change that basis of competition. They get access to that information. And then they can either partner with the startup once they've got to a certain level to enter new markets, or license the technology and take that into new markets to service new customers. So that's kind of how we think about it. But I agree, taking a 10% stake and then sitting on the cap table, and then getting the company for cheap in an acquisition because you sat on the cap table is not going to be beneficial to an ecosystem. I will say that one of the things we've seen is for like Maersk Growth and a few other of the logistics startups that we've invested into internationally, oftentimes the cap table doesn't just have one corporate, they have 3 or 4. And they're all competitors that are all seeing the relevance of this technology and saying, we want to be able to have a decent experience with you, to partner with you in that way. So I think it's interesting is that if you do have a corporate on your cap table, try get others, try get their closest competitor. If you got the one corporate, it's clearly useful. You can get their closest competitor as well. And then it builds more exits.
And those are great situations. Sorry, just one quick thing. When you have multiple corporates that are often competing on the cap table purely from an equity perspective, that is the opposite effect. It helps to founders significantly because it pushes the fair value for a potential acquisition even a lot higher. There was one case for a startup in South Africa. We hadn't backed them, but they were a data science platform called Omniscient, where they would share data between retailers, insurance companies on the one hand, completely anonymized, and they would make that data available for smart decision making from a lending perspective, an insurance standpoint, whatever. They were a data platform. They had the 4th largest bank in South Africa invest in them, the 2nd largest retailer invest in them, InvestX, and the largest private asset manager in South Africa invest in them. And they're all sitting at the table with equity stakes and all thinking, how can we add more value to this company? It's almost like, how can we one-up our competitors in adding value not to ourselves, but to the startup? And the startup goes from like growing like this to suddenly growing like this, and the founders are like, I can't keep up with the amount of value that I'm getting, I'm gonna hire more people. And then what ends up happening, which is beautiful, is corporate execs quit their jobs and then go work for that startup. And the corporate says, by all means, please do, because you're helping us, because we're investors. And it's this beautiful cycle, but it's only happening because there are multiple corporates on the cap table. This is actually Startup Bootcamp's model from an accelerator standpoint, but now you're applying it to an actual VC investment. That is a good example, so to Jill's point earlier, of CVC done right amongst multiple corporates.
That's fair.
I'll make a really quick and different pitch. So I don't know if there'll be more exits or acquisitions, but I think it's forcing us to innovate, at least in this part of the world. And I'll take a looser definition of what a corporate is. For us, it could be an informal sector actor who makes a lot of money and has the valuation of a corporate. And that's why I'm not even using the term CVC as much, because things that look like these corporate or CVC, etc., do exist here. Some of the actors that approach us that are corporates will tell us, I have assets, I have buildings, how can I use that to invest or co-invest in startups? It's forcing us to think about innovations and how do we do things differently. And I think in this part of the world, we're seeing a lot of these types of investment being structured differently, but we don't talk about it enough, or we don't share it enough, where if you put them in the CVC definition, it would actually be a great thing.
Thank you very much. We could have spent 1 hour more, but I believe that it's fair for everybody to
Could have
stop
stayed,
here.
hour and hour more here. But thanks a lot, Jody. Thanks to you all. Thanks to our speakers. Please, can you applaud our speaker for this panel about VC and CVC? Sorry?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah. I think that I'm going to invite you to continue the conversation at the Boma, because we are really running out of time. And I think that there is a lot of, again, to be shared around a drink, or, I think that that would be also a very nice moment to share and to continue the conversation. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So, thanks a lot for being with us for this first day of AfricArena in Dakar. We share this first day about logistics, fintech, and also mobility. We are going to continue for sure to share and connect at the Boma. So I invite you to go just straight after, when it's come to mobility in Dakar, you can, take some security and go right now, so that you are going to be on time for the cocktail, the VC night. And tomorrow, we are going to be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with the SBC Demo Day morning. And let's see you there. They are already here and very excited to jump into. So thanks a lot for being with us for this first day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.